back to KeYona TV, the one, the only. We are broadcasting on ZMC on channel 398. And of course, we are available on digital terrestrial television on channel 803. And today is an important day for journalists and the media fraternity as the world commemorates International Day to End Impunity for crimes against journalists. This is the day that was set aside by the United Nations to canvass for the ending of impunity for crimes against journalists, which is one of the most important and complex challenges of recent times. It is an essential precondition to guarantee freedom of expression and access to information for all citizens. Now, the 2023 observance seeks to raise awareness of the main challenges faced by journalists and communicators in the exercise of their profession and to warn of the escalation of violence and repression against them. Now, I'm joined in the studio by the Zimbabwe Media Commissioner Aleck Ncube to discuss more around these issues. As you know, that the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed 2 November as an International Day to End Impunity for crimes against journalists. Good morning, Commissioner Ncube.
Good morning, Leslie. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, thanks. Now, let's get into the key issues affecting journalists and reinforcing the Zimbabwe Media Commission's dedication to fostering a conducive environment for journalism and advocating for the protection of media professionals. What is the key message coming through from Zimbabwe Media Commission on a day like this?
Thank you very much. I think it is important as journalists to understand that the operations of journalists must be respected and that journalists are at work. So as a commission, we are very much happy to be commemorating this day, and the message out there is that all forms of impunity or crimes against journalists must end. Why? Because we want journalists to freely operate and not to be afraid of intimidation, of harassment. As the Zimbabwe Media Commission, we are, it's one of our key mandates to ensure that journalists are protected while at work and they are respected as well. So we are happy that the United Nations set aside this day for the commemoration of an end to impunity of crimes against journalists.
All right, let's reflect on some of the corrective measures taken during the 2023 General Harmonized Elections to safeguard journalists, including the distribution of press jackets and specialized training. What did the Zimbabwe Media Commission do in terms of protecting journalists?
The Zimbabwe Media Commission did a lot in terms of trying to ensure that journalists carry out their work without encountering any harassment or intimidation. What we did is we came up with the elections reporting and peace journalism manual. Right. That manual helped a lot because it was an inclusive, manual which we undertook, which we generated through collaborations with the various media stakeholders, and it had inputs from almost every sector which had previously been cited as hindering the free movement or the free operations of journalism. And as Zimbabwe Media Commission, we came up with the manual. We also came up with the idea of distributing press jackets to all journalists who were involved in coverage of the recently concluded 2023 harmonized elections, which I must admit was one of the most peaceful elections ever held in the country. So as ZMC, we take pride in that all that took place through our activities and our engagements.
Indeed, the role that was played by Zimbabwe Media Commission cannot be overemphasized, and it was easier to do work. I must commend you, Commissioner, especially the distribution of press jackets and the specialized training that you did. Now, let's talk about the Zimbabwe Media Commission and its work in terms of upholding press freedom and ensuring the safety of media practitioners.
Thank you very much for that question. I think upholding the safety of media personnel is one of the key mandates of the Zimbabwe Media Commission. We have done a lot in terms of, ensuring that journalists are recognized as professionals at work. And as ZMC, like I mentioned earlier on, we have been undertaking a lot of, countrywide trainings to try and conscientize journalists about how they are supposed to handle themselves. We were focusing mainly on the elections, but there are many other sectors where we need to really play a role as the Zimbabwe Media Commission. And I also want to point out that we have also come up, in addition to the elections reporting manual, we have also come up with a sexual harassment policy in the media. So we're doing quite a lot to try and ensure that journalists are safe to work in safe environments.
Indeed, you raise a critical issue of sexual harassment policy in the workplace and all. What strides have been made by ZMC, just to digress a bit?
Right. I think the major stride, like I mentioned earlier on, is ensuring that journalists get the respect they deserve. I think, it's unfortunate that the advent of COVID brought along a lot of, recognition that journalists constitute an important sector. So during COVID, we actually made sure that journalists were classified as an essential service, just like the police, just like anyone else. So for me, that was a major improvement in terms. It gave us an opportunity to actually harp home the point that journalists are an essential service and they need to be respected.
All right, let's go back to issues that to do with today's theme. In what ways do the legal provisions such as the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Freedom of Information Act support and safeguard the freedom of the press and media practitioners at large?
The Constitution of Zimbabwe is very clear. Section 61 is very clear on the fact that access to information is a human right. So freedom of expression, as well as protection of the media is actually captured in our constitution. And as ZMC, as part of the Chapter 12 commissions, we have actually taken it upon ourselves to ensure that journalists are protected and journalists are free to undertake their work. And let me emphasize that the ZMC is a creature of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, and our operations are likely guided by the Constitution of the country. So the Constitution is very clear as to the importance of the freedom of information and freedom of access to information, as well as protection of journalists whilst they undertake their work, not disclosing sources and things like that. Yes. I
am with Commissioner Ncube from the Zimbabwe Media Commission to talk about a number of issues revolving around today's message that speaks to the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, which is a significant event on the United Nations calendar dedicated to addressing global journalist abuse. And the Zimbabwe Media Commission, as Commissioner Ncube has already said, reiterates its steadfast commitment to upholding press freedom and ensuring journalist safety, with a focus on this year's theme of violence against journalists, electoral integrity, and the role of public leadership. And while we talk about those specific themes, violence against journalists, Commissioner Ncube, electoral integrity, and the role of public leadership, how can Zimbabweans really observe the freedom of expression? It's one of the key tenets in terms of journalistic work. How can Zimbabweans develop a culture of freedom of expression?
Thank you very much for that question. I think Zimbabweans in general are elected people. What we want as a ZMC is for the media to capture accurate information so that the public itself gets confident what the media broadcast or writes in its various forms. Why I'm saying this is because we are in an era where there is a lot of misinformation, disinformation. We want the media, which is the fourth estate, to really stick to the issue of factual reporting, so that it is can actually trust the media to say, look, the information we get is factual and accurate, because we all know that, disinformation, misinformation are happening, but we do not want Zimbabwean journalists to be involved in that. We want them to stick to, their fact-checking and being professional in their conduct.
All right, Commissioner Ncube, now how can media practitioners, I want to contextualize this to our work that we face every day. If we face challenges of threats, intimidation, what measures have you put in place to protect the media?
The Zimbabwe Media Commission has open door policy. Journalists are free to contact the Media Commission. There is a contact number. There is also the issue of emails. We are trying to decentralize our operations. We are hopeful that by the end of this year we will be operating from Bulawayo. If I can mention just one, to say probably by early 2024 we will have decentralized and make sure that we have an office in Bulawayo, so that journalists with complaints can easily lodge their complaints. But there is already a mechanism in place where journalists are free to approach the commission with any queries regarding harassment and things like that when they are undertaking their work. But I must emphasize again that as ZMC we have engaged almost all the stakeholders to ensure that they respect journalists and give them access for them to do their work unhindered. So we have an open door policy, and all our accredited journalists know where to find the Zimbabwe Media Commission at 108 Swan Drive in Alexandra Park, Harare. They are free to come and lodge complaints there, or they are also free to write and send those complaints to the commission.
All right, Commissioner Ncube, we are commemorating International Day to End Impunity for crimes against journalists. What would be your parting words to our viewers, to the media fraternity from Zimbabwe Media Commission perspective?
The Zimbabwe Media Commission would like to congratulate our Zimbabwean media for ethically undertaking their work during the just concluded elections. We had almost 0 cases of intimidation of journalists at work, and that alone is an acknowledgement that the Zimbabwe Media Commission did its work through an inclusive engagement of all the stakeholders involved, be they the police, be they these several journalists association, ZUJ, MISA, VMCZ. We engaged all those in terms of coming up with the manual. So the manual which we produced is the Bible which all journalists should be able to carry around and then practice. But I want to end up by saying journalism is a facts-based profession. It's a science. So sticking to facts is one of those important tenets of journalism. Zimbabwe journalists are practice journalism are based on ethical fact. To commemorate with us as the journalistic and media fraternity embraces and commemorates International Day to End Impunity for crimes against journalists. And thank you so much, Commissioner Ncube, for your time. Thank you.
After the break, as we continue today's session, the program you don't. I am Aleck Ncube. Keep watching KeYona TV, the one, the only.
Thanks. Yeah, we will invite them more often. So that is we see within president sikhuluma si-accessa in terms of KeYona, and it's accessible on the Azam platform. There's more. You also need to do a lot of marketing. Abantu bebelayo. It's cheaper than DSTV. At last we don't have KeYona. Very few. So I think you do targeted with abantu babekwazi. And for me it's a good